Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Daddy Dads podcast. Today's topic, sex. All things sex. How to talk to your kids about sex. At what age should you talk to them about sex? Body acceptance, technology concerns, consent. And if time permits, we might even get a few sex and relationship tips as well. And you're fortunate enough that I'm not going to be the one providing that advice. No, instead today, I get the pleasure of interviewing a board-certified sex therapist who also has a doctorate in clinical sexology, as well as she's also a licensed marriage and family therapist. And today I want to welcome to the Dad to Dads podcast the very informative as well as fun and energetic Dr. Lisa Paz. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I am so psyched to be here. I love everything we're about to talk about today. And I love that it's a dad's podcast because I feel like moms often get relegated to do some of the heavy lift. Listen, all love to the dads, but I love that the dads are like about it to do these talks. And I do think we should or will reserve some time for the grown-up sex talk too.
There we go.
All right.
There we go. Well, tell me this. What did I miss about you in the introduction?
What did you miss? I'm a mom of three. I think from a professional standpoint, you got it. I've been in private practice almost 20 years. I'm adjunct faculty at UM where I teach other therapists how to do sex therapy. So, I mean, this is like my warm water. I'm very happy to talk about it and excited at all times.
A couple of other things. Your Instagram page. I love it. It's one of my favorite.
For real?
Seriously. Yeah, it really is. I love looking at it. And then you have, what is it? Just the Tip Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Was it Hump Day Humor?
Yeah.
So I highly recommend for everybody out there. And is it under, it's Dr. Lisa Paz.
You got it. Thank you for asking. Yes,
handle.
The handle is Dr. Lisa Paz. That's right.
And that's
right.
P-A-Z. So
yep.
highly recommend that. One other thing through research, I think I found out you were also on the Kardashians as well as the Real Housewives of Miami. Is that correct?
It is correct. Yes. Over the years, I've made fun appearances on some big pop shows. Yes. All
I
good
noticed
stuff.
that. I was looking you up last night. I was doing some research and I'm like, wait, she was on there as well. So
yes.
That's great.
Look, you are well informed.
Well, look, there is so much that I would absolutely love to ask you. And I mean, I could go on and on with this, but I want to keep it to a minimum.
Okay.
And so just to start it off, the three thoughts that come into your mind when you think about today's youth, let's say early 20s, up to, or maybe early to mid 20s, when you think about them and sex, what are the three thoughts that come into your head immediately?
People in their 20s, early 20s, we're calling youth.
Yeah. Well, for me, they are.
I know. I guess for me too, if I'm being real, it hurts my heart though. I thought you were going to be like youth 13 and oh my God, I'm like, yes, you're right. Three thoughts. One, the comparative culture of social media and the impact it's having on sex. Two, the pressure to perform and sort of just be all out there. And three, the privilege of being in a sex positive culture overall, right? So I think that there's pluses and minuses attached to it. So I think there's pressure, there's privilege, and there's a lot of comparative culture out there that is challenging.
So let me ask you this. Sex today, do you think more people are having sex today versus 20 years ago?
That's a great question. I think people are having different kinds of sex. I think that people are more open and feel freer to explore more today than they did 20 years ago. I think female sexuality has taken a big leap forward as it relates. And I guess this, when you talk about youth, 20-year-old youth, right? Really, you just hurt my heart with that.
Sorry
one.
about that.
My whole ego I'm dying here. I think that women have taken a big leap as it relates to being able to claim pleasure, being able to say what they want, being able to be more affirmative. I still think they have a long way to go, but that's one of the big things that I see is that sex for women has changed a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. I also think consent at all ages has gotten, I don't know, weirder, but I think that's a big piece, right? That it's harder times to have sex these days.
So let me ask you this. Going into what you view as youth. So let's say teenagers.
Yes.
Thoughts, sex,
Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes. So listen, I mean, I think that there's the teens, I think, are having sex earlier than they did 20 years ago, because of social media, because everything is all access, because of pornography, because you can walk around and sort of get access to content that you couldn't get access to 20 years ago. And so I think people are exploring sexuality sooner. And I mean, even if you look at I would even say 10 years ago, I look at these girls that are 12, 15, even 20-year-olds. They look like grown, sexy women. And I look at like when I was that age, right? And like, you looked like a kid. I mean, they
Yeah.
looked like kids. So, I think we're just in a more sexualized culture overall. But I don't think parents are talking about. I still think that this country is like very sexualized out loud, but at the dinner table, still very conservative or afraid to talk about it.
So I'm going to get to that in a minute. But one thing I want to ask you, you said there have been more sex, but is there any, I've read a lot where like the guys, the males aren't having as much sex because of the easy access to pornography. Is that true? Or
Very, very true. So, okay, so good point. I think kids overall are more sexualized. Boys are actually showing a preference towards pornography as time goes on. Like we're seeing delayed ejaculation, erectile dysfunction in younger and younger males due to pornography, due to the fact that they are starting their sexual programming, all their neural networking attached to eroticism and fantasies and masturbation and sexuality in this way that is so tailor-made to what they want. It's almost creating both sexual ADD, if you will, and also a sexual dependence or a very narrow pathway on what gets them off. So yes, I mean, I think that that's fair game as it relates to boys are just as happy to masturbate than they are to have partnered sex in many occasions these days. Unfortunately so.
yeah, that's interesting. Shocking too. So let me ask you this. So you to go what you brought up a minute ago, talking to your kids about sex. What age? We were talking offline,
Yep.
and I can't remember. It was either fourth or fifth grade for each of my sons when I had the talk. They knew about body anatomy.
Yep.
They knew that. But then it was a time where, okay, let's go have a lunch, and let's really just laid it all out there. I did. I went from A to Z, didn't leave anything out, didn't, included every slang term there was. Of course, I used the proper medical terms.
Yep.
But, at and one I'll have to go back and correct because of your site. I learned vulva versus vagina. There you go. So I'm going to have to go back and tell them I was wrong. I don't know how I'm going to bring that up in conversation, but I
love it.
But when is the proper time? Is there an age? Is it maturity? And how do you go about that?
Yes, this is the core of it. So you said something that I think is very important, right? The anatomy discussion is what lays the foundation. So we should be talking about anatomy very early on. And it's perfectly okay to toggle between like pet names and anatomically correct names, right? You don't need your 7-year-old to always be referring to the vulva, right? Whatever you pet name it in your house, it's okay, but they should actually know anatomy too. What that does is it lays the foundation for the harder talks or the more sexualized talks down the line. So body parts and safe touch should start by 3, 4, 5. By 5 years old, your kid should know the difference between public parts and private parts. And this starts to lay a foundation. So everyone listening, what I'd like to suggest is that it is an incremental building block before you get to the talk. And I would actually even challenge that it's not one talk. It's a series of sort of incremental information drops.
Right.
And because this is a dad's podcast, right? I would like to also say, it doesn't just need to be gender to gender, right? I encourage dads to be able to talk to daughters and moms to be able to talk to sons because that creates fluidity and because it also cues them that this is fair game. And if you want to be one of the authorities on this topic to your child, then you need to be willing to talk to them about it. So that's sort of the like intro piece. The actual age, you also hit on it. There's a maturity piece and a chapter piece. So, some kids are just naturally a little bit more mature and a little more advanced. This is also influenced by if they have older siblings, if they have more time alone, if they're around cousins. Again, for all dads listening, some kids are just like, they land in a more socially advanced space. But I would say by, fifth to seventh grade, your kid should really understand what sex is, and they should understand the responsibility around it, and they should understand what your point of view on when it is okay to start engaging in various sexual behaviors. So one of the things that I hear parents say a lot is, I don't want to give them too much information because I don't want them to think I'm cool with it. I don't want them to think I'm okay with it. But what research actually shows is the best model is information plus your family values and expectations. Yeah. And so every conversation can be riddled with, by the way, just because I'm telling you this doesn't mean it's okay to do it. And my invitation to parents in the way to think about this is, our kids know what a car is. That doesn't mean they can drive when at 12 years old. Great Our kids point. Know what a glass of wine is. Our kids know what a gun is, right? That doesn't mean that they are able to use or ingest or engage in any of these things. It just means they know. And so what we need to do is sort of implement that because you know this stuff is not a license to do it. It just means I want you to be aware. I am also a big fan of keeping the information in short sound bites as you can, because that creates normalcy. It shouldn't be one discussion. It should be myriad of discussions.
Yeah. And it's after that first one, it's so, and you're right, with kind of chapters on that, but it's after that first big discussion, it's so much easier.
Of course.
It's so much easier, and going in kind of filling in the holes or whatever. And
no pun intended.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it definitely is. So, no, and I agree with you. I have had that conversation with people like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you talked to them about it. Now they're going to think it's okay. And I'm like, no, that doesn't mean it's okay. But look, they're exposed to it through their phones. And they're exposed to it through kids. Totally. I mean, through their friends. My goodness.
If your child has a phone, they 100% have access to sexual content. Yeah. And if you want to get in front of what you want them to think is okay, appropriate, acceptable, then that means that you need to be the front line of communication, period. Yeah. They're going to get that. And this, when you talk about what's different today than 20 years ago, this is one of the big pieces, is that the information age and the information dissemination network has expanded so much that these children have access in a way. I mean, I remember growing up, you would look up a bad word in the dictionary. You looked at National Geographic.
That's what I was about to say, National Geographic.
Totally. This is no longer how it goes down. And so parents are just being naive if they think that by not talking about it, their kids won't have access. And again, embedded in these incremental conversations as they get older. So if we're saying by 7th grade, they really should understand sex. By 7th, 8th, 9th grade, they really should understand the responsibility attached to sex. And They need to understand consent, and they need to understand health implications, right? It's not just all about, license to have pleasure or not. It's all the responsibility that comes with sex. Again, all the responsibility that comes with driving a car or drinking a glass of wine or holding a gun, right? All these things that they know about, but that they can't do yet because they come with big consequences. Sex is similar.
All right. But doctor, sometimes I remember before I talked to my boys, I mean, I was nervous.
Yes.
But there was still, how am I going to approach this? And what advice would you give to parents about that? Just jump in and do it? What?
No. Here is my advice. And it's interesting because I train a lot of parents on how to do this. You need to practice your neutrality beforehand. Not only are kids smart, kids know their parents. And if you go into a conversation awkward or weird or using weird tones of voice, your kids will call bullshit on you real fast. And you are cueing them that not only are you not a credible source, but you are uncomfortable with this conversation and you're doing it out of obligation or awkwardness, and you become just less of a person they're going to come to. So what I ask people to do is start practicing some of the harder words, right? Some of the anatomy words, some of the positional words. If you are not comfortable saying it, you are not going to transmit that they should be safe and comfortable saying it. So that means car, shower, when you're alone prepping dinner in the kitchen. You got to be able to say all of this stuff in neutrality, in the same way you would say, do you want a glass of water? Do you know what the function of the clitoris is? Do you want chicken parmesan tonight? Do you know how to have an orgasm? it needs to look that neutral if you want to be the highest credible communicator.
And if not, how would they come to their parents about it? If you're uncomfortable talking about it with your kid, then how are they going to come to?
That's exactly right. You become an uncredible source.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And so if your goal is that you want to be a credible source of information for your child, then you need to show up as a credible communicator with your child, right? And so that means practicing. That means and by the way, it means working through your own stuff, right? It means looking at what messages were you given? What messages were you not given? What do you want to perpetuate forward? What don't you? What's your own, when everyone has stuff with sex, right? And so looking at your stuff first.
So one thing you touched on, technology.
Yes.
And kids and sex. Talk to me about it.
Yeah, no, it's not great. It's not great. This is another incentive for parents to get in front of the conversation. So it's not great for several reasons. One, the algorithms attached to TikTok and Instagram jump really quickly. And so if your child likes a picture of a girl and then likes a picture of a girl with a bikini, we're one algorithm away from something that's potentially pornographic. Whether that's fair or not, that's really the way the algorithms are running. And so they are being, not only, because I have parents that will tell me like, but my child's not looking for that stuff. Okay, but listen, maybe they're not, but that stuff is looking for them unintentionally, right? Yeah. And so that's one piece. Secondly, for anyone that has children that are sort of coming of age, that are looking at pornography, and again, I know every parent says mine isn't. Oh, okay, yours isn't, but probably
whatever.
Right, exactly. We need to be teaching them that is adult entertainment and it is not indicative of real sex. So part of what we're seeing because of such early pornography watching, like I said, not only delayed ejaculation and erectile dysfunction in younger and younger males and a preference towards non-partnered sex, but we're seeing both males and females have false expectations of what sex looks like or should be. And this is, I think, very true for girls, right? Because you see girls in pornography and they're getting off really, really fast and they're, all the things that is not necessarily indicative of real life sex. And so teaching them that this is something that people use as a tool for arousal, but that it's not real. Again, not dissimilar to the way we would watch an action movie, but that's not really how you jump out of a plane, right? Like it is for entertainment purposes. They need to be able to make the distinction. And so letting them know that is very important. And for those that have teenage children that are, I don't know whether they're going to cop to watching porn or not, but I think that if you have children probably between the ages of 15 and 18, you can bet that they are, and they're probably self-pleasuring using it. They cannot become solely dependent on it. So to really be willing to talk to your kids about the collateral damage it's associated with too much pornography intake too young.
Wow, that's a lot.
I know. Sorry.
No, that's great. That's great. I mean, I think back to when I was growing up. I mean, it was if you wanted to see breast, again, National Geographic or
Playboy.
One of your friends' dads had a subscription and. Kept it under the bed or in the bathroom or whatever, and you would go and steal it. And, hopefully they didn't come home from work, before you and like four other guys gathered around looking at it, so.
Totally. And capturing a mental image and being able to take that mental image back to your bathroom, right? Yeah. Here's what's happening now. People are watching pornography, and for anyone that's ever watched it, right, how you watch it, either on a handheld device or an iPad or whatever. And you click really quickly and you watch what you want to watch for 30 seconds, 50 if I'm being generous, right? And then you click to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And what is happening and why you're seeing delayed ejaculation increase in males is because they are holding their ejaculation patterns to exactly what they want to get off on, right? They're looking for that exact thing that they want to come to. And so we're creating sort of this tailor-made network to arousal ejaculation that doesn't translate to partnered sex. So like, you're talking about the old school Playboy, and then you'd hold that mental image and you'd hope that it was clear enough for the next month or whatever. Yeah. Now, we're not holding a mental image for longer than 30 seconds. Even if you had a video when you were younger, it was VHS, right? You either watched it or you got up and you press fast forward. We're creating almost like a sexual attention deficit here, right? Where we just can't focus on anything for too long. And anything that you want to see, you can see and then ante up and see new content attached to that, which, listen, as an idea to keep things fresh is super fun and exciting. I think porn is great for a lot of people, so I don't want to get super down on porn. I think though, as a sole reliance on it, or particularly for younger generation, if it's not watched in moderation, we're seeing, the numbers aren't lying, the research isn't lying, we're seeing younger and younger males that are showing a harder time getting aroused or maintaining an erection or an ejaculation with partnered sex, because you go to have a partnered sex and it's not the same network. It's not the same positions. It's not the same noises. It's not as rapid fire. I mean, partnered sex is very cool in its own right, but it is not what you've been training your brain to have a response to. And so you're seeing sort of a splice in arousal response.
I had no idea it was so damaging for both males and females.
Yeah. And again, it's also awesome, right? I in moderation and used in the, correct sounds very certain, but
how is a kid, an adolescent, a youth, how are they to know what's moderation?
Right? Correct. They're not, which is why it's incumbent on us to talk to them about what they should and shouldn't be looking at, or just teaching them the consequences, right? And so, you know, as a parent, you're a dad, I'm a mom, half of parenting is teaching them the consequences to their actions. It doesn't matter what action. It can be a benign action. Not studying for a test means you're not going to do it, right? So some of this is also just about teaching them that sex, masturbation, pornography, dating, it all has consequences, and we need to help them connect to the consequences. With sex, it's really important because you're fighting pleasure, right? And so, you know, when people, especially young people, first discover what it means to have that kind of pleasure, wow, it's amazing, right? It's amazing. And so getting them to understand that with that amazingness, there's also really big consequences and really big responsibilities. That's our job. That's part of our job, is to help them connect that this is awesome and pleasurable and very cool and feels amazing. But boy, does it come with consequences.
So let me ask you about this. Consent.
Yes.
Huge.
Huge. It's always been huge. I think it's really huge today. I want to say more now more than ever. I don't know if that's fair or not, but I think that one of the most important things, I'm going to make some gender generalizations now in this part of the conversation. So, you know, love me, hate me, but I think that there is a gender piece here. I think what is so cool right now is girls are being taught more and more that they can say no, they can bail on a situation, and that's okay. And so I think that's really amazing. I do think, though, that we really, really now more than ever need to be talking to boys about how important it is to be 100% certain that their partner that they are going to do anything with is really, really okay. And I tell particularly my 13-year-old who's like, I just stepping into this, but like, right, middle school, I think, is when they start to experiment. You really got to be checking at every checkpoint. After you kiss, if you're going to do something else, just take a beat. Hey, is it okay? Are you sure it's okay? Give the girl the out. We can stop at any time. If you're a dad that has a daughter, let them know you don't have to just keep going. You can stop at any time. By the way, and I can reverse the gender generalization here, we got to teach boys too that if they want to bail on a situation because they feel uncomfortable, they can get out of a situation also, right? So really making sure that you have consent and stopping at every checkpoint is very, very important. I have seen, unfortunately, a lot of miscommunication take place where, you know, a girl, again, this sounds a little misogynistic, but I'm going to roll with it, where a girl in the moment thinks that she wants to and it feels good, but she's nervous, but she doesn't say no, and the boy keeps going. And then, you know, she's having a conversation afterwards with the friends and she's like, I didn't know, you know, and it just takes one friend to be like, well, did you want to? Or wait.
Yeah.
And wow, I've seen boys' lives be turned on a dime because of a miscommunication about consent. I've seen boys kicked out of school. I've seen guys kicked out of college where it was miscommunication. And so, again, it's really important that we impress upon our children the consequences attached to something potentially going wrong and making sure they have consent.
So, I mean, you almost can't get enough consent, correct?
You almost can't get enough consent. And again, in a non-activated state, this feels really available. Everyone's like, yeah, high five, I know, consent. But when you are in the moment and your prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed and you're aroused and your
Right.
blood is flowing, it's a slippery, slippery slope. The way I teach it to boys, particularly boys who are athletes, are when you are on 10 on the field or on the court, right? And that whistle blows because a foul was called or because the quarter's over. You have to stop on a dime, even though you're running at such a high level, right? But your body has to stop what it's doing. So they have actually been training themselves to be able to take a high physiological arousal response and stop on a dime. Well, if someone says no, or if you sense that someone isn't ready, it is the same mechanism.
Same as the ref's whistle.
It's the same as the ref's whistle.
Yeah, I like that.
And they need to be able to make that connection. And they need to be able to make the connection that someone can stop at any time and really be able to pull back. This is hard for grown men and women to do, right? Like, I invite anyone who's about to orgasm to just stop, right? And be like, okay, I'm going to cool down now. Not easy. It's not easy to do. Yeah. So, and this is for well-developed adults. It's not easy to do for them. It's certainly not easy to do for kids that are just learning this. So consent and consequence.
That is absolutely wonderful and so valuable. Hey, I know our time's limited, but body acceptance
yes.
as well. I loved a post that you had on that probably over a month ago. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, it's hard. So it's interesting.
And so much pressure today too, right?
Yep. Suicide rates and depression among teenage girls is at an all-time high. And it's largely because of social media. I sound like I'm so down on media. I'm not. But largely because of social media and the comparative culture. And so we're seeing, but it's interesting because the narrative out loud is body positive. And yet the comparative culture is suggesting the opposite. So body acceptance is really, really important, and understanding anatomy helps with body acceptance. And I think that we need to be teaching, again, cross gender. So boys shouldn't just know about their own body and body acceptance. Boys should know about women or females and their body and what happens to their body. And girls should know about boys and body acceptance, right? So the way we sort of can promote some of this body acceptance is through helping them understand what each other's body has to go through. I think is one of the big pieces. And then again, just the idea that comparative culture is so unhealthy, and it's tough. We're seeing this.
How do you give me an example? How do you talk to your sons about body acceptance?
I tell them they have big dicks. No, I'm joking. Listen.
Just what you want to hear from your mom too,
listen,
right?
I want them to go into the world knowing, no, they're going to accept their body if it's the last thing I do. No, how do I talk to them? That they need to feel comfortable and they need to be healthy. So I talk about body acceptance through health, right? And they need to feel like they're healthy and feel grateful for their body. And that if they're not attracted to another girl because of her body, that's fair game, but they cannot discuss it, right? You can't shame anyone. We're all entitled to our preference, period. Right. And that's okay. You like them fit, you like them thick, you like big boobs, you like big thighs. I don't really care what you like.
Right.
But I care that you are kind and supportive to all body types. That doesn't mean you need to pursue all body types. And so I think body acceptance is about recognizing we can have preference towards something, but we have to accept everybody. So I teach body acceptance the same way you can teach any other preference, right? And just that.
How often do your kids' friends' moms say, "Hey, Lisa, will you talk to," I just imagine like every Saturday, all of a sudden you have 15 kids, in your great room and, having a little lesson on sex.
Yeah, it's not that literal, but it kind of is that way. Yeah. I have carpool to the soccer field and I have a great room with an Xbox. And so the kids know that it's fair game to come talk to me. I always check with parents, they know that my house is a communicative house, but they're always like, say what you want. I know it's going to be okay. And so I do. I talk to them really never inappropriate, but always grounded in normalizing it and safety and health and just, again, consciousness and consequences.
That's why I wanted to get you on here too, is because your site is very, it's very frank. It's fun, right? Yes. I don't want to say it's edgy. Maybe you're not afraid to go out there and discuss in not clinical, but in a, accepted way. You're not shy about it. And, it's extremely informative.
Thank you.
As well. So I wanted to ask you, I'm just cognizant of your time. Most of the listeners, as you can imagine, are men. And they're usually between 35, 55 is what the demographics are saying. So, sexual issues.
Yes.
What do you see?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I think the top...
And hold on, before we talk about the sexual issues, well, also maybe quick treatments too for those.
Sure. I don't know that there's quick treatments, but...
Well, no. Quickly tell about the treatments as well. So,
listen. So ages 35 to 55. Those that are in partnered relationships, I'm seeing desire discrepancy, right? Where their desire is at a different level than their partner's desire, and how to navigate that. Also, in long-term relationships, how to keep it hot is one of the big things I'm seeing. At a clinical level, listen, 50% of men over the age of 50 are going to show some sort of erectile dysfunction or slowing down of the erection, but that can start, again, as early as the 30s. So I'm seeing males in that age demographic that have the erectile dysfunction issues, that are having the ejaculation issues, and the desire issues. Those are the big, I think those are the biggies for men in general.
But we're fortunate too, because we have, the different pills, and then also, testosterone treatments. Those help as well, don't they?
They do help, but I will tell you, if your anxiety around erectile dysfunction is higher than your comfort, it is all, I see so many men that are on tons, daily Cialis, 20 milligrams of Viagra for the weekend, plus. But if they can't get their head in the game, it will fail them, right? And so a lot of what I will see with men, particularly because of that age range that you just cited, we know that stress, fatigue, are some of the major inhibitors, right? And what is the age bracket in life where you're peaking on stress, responsibility, fatigue? Right. 35 to 55, right? So I'll see a lot of men that what will happen is, for whatever reason, their penis didn't cooperate that day, right? The wind blew southwest, like there was no good reason. And now all of a sudden they're in sort of, I call it a batter slump, where the next time they go up to bat, instead of focusing on the things that turn them on, boobs, legs, butt, hair, feet, whatever you like, frogs, they are now focused on their performance. And in doing that, in doing so, right, and landing in a self-evaluative headspace, they're cutting themselves off at the head, right? And so retraining the brain how to get over that. And Viagra won't help on that. If you're taking tons of Viagra, but you're not focusing on sexual cues, the Viagra will not save you from it. So men are lucky in that they do have a lot of pharmacological support, but if the head is interrupting it, the head is interrupting it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not realize that. That makes complete sense, but I did not realize that. I thought with Viagra didn't matter, but I did not realize
because
that.
You need really three things for an erection, right? Yeah. You need blood flow, you need hormones, and you need brain cooperation. Yeah. And so if you're taking tons of Viagra, but you're going, okay, just relax. Oh shit, take a breath. Am I getting hard? Am I hard enough to go in right now? Is she going to notice that? You're not firing the same neural pathway that the erection runs on. When was the last time you jerked off going, just take a breath. Oh my God, just relax. You don't. Yeah. Your brain responds to sexualized cues, or your penis responds to sexualized thoughts. And so you need to feed your brain sexualized thoughts to have an erectile response, or to have an ejaculatory response. So if you're too stuck in your head in the negative, the pills won't save you. Injections will save you, men that are on Trimix or Quadmix, but that's not usually men in.
So mental health, physical health as well.
Totally. Yeah. Absolutely.
That makes sense.
And desire, right? Making sure you're being a good partner. Because that's sort of the rush hour part of life. You see a lot of the connection between, people who are partnered. For the single dads, this is, I think, they face a different set of challenges. But for partner dads, it's hard to keep it hot. Your partner's not in the mood at the same time you are. It becomes a to-do list item. It becomes one note. It becomes unexciting. So the other thing I see a lot with males in that age range is just, the struggle to keep it hot and interesting.
Yeah, especially with all of life's challenges and everything else. So that, raising children, work, yeah.
Listen, Robert, and I tell people all the time, and you know, because this is your dad and this is a dad's podcast. Parenting is amazing. It is not sexy though. And as soon as you become mom and dad, or dad and dad, if depending on who's listening, right? The roles shift, right? When it's husband and wife, those are the people that have sex. Those are the people that are intimate. Mom and dad are not the people that have sex, right? And if we're parenting well, we're in a mom and dad role way more than we're in a husband-wife role. So it becomes harder and harder to transition back to those sexual identities. And, you know, again, parenting is not hot. And so carving out space to access that part of yourself is really important.
That would actually be something I'd love to have you back one day, talk about, you know, couples and sex and how to reinvigorate your sex life. I think that would be extremely important. All right, before I let you go, sex tips or relationship tips.
Yep. Oh, I also want to plug 2 programs that I think are helpful apropos of what we're talking about. Okay, but sex tips for males, right? Women, foreplay starts long before foreplay actually starts. Women need to be mentally connected. And so if you are in a partnered relationship with a woman, right, one of the best things that you can do to create some sort of engagement is to start taking things off of her plate days in advance, to start being complimentary days in advance, to not activate when she is tired. You will get the best version of a woman if you can catch her in a low stress environment. I am a big fan of masturbation for people, just not in over-reliance on pornography. I think it keeps the neural networks firing. So another sex tip is you should have a self-pleasure practice. It keeps that part of the brain firing. It keeps you connected to what you like. You just need to do it in moderation. You can't become over-dependent on sort of the entertainment piece of it. And then the other tip is to be a good communicator with your partner, with your children. The more comfortable you are with sexual content at all levels, the better lover you are, right? Sex is about being comfortable. The best sex is when people are free. And so the more comfortable you are, the freer you are.
There you go. So sex starts not 15 minutes before.
No, days.
It can start days before.
I always tell men it starts when you ask to take the garbage out or help making the lunch 2 days before, you know? And then great. I want to let listeners know, I have a course, a downloadable course for ages 0 to 11 children that you can go download off my website on how to talk to your children about sex. And I also have an upcoming program that's going to be available in the next couple of weeks on communication and sex and learning how to cultivate desire. So for those people, they can find it either via Instagram or via my website. And it's good stuff.
And your website is?
drlisapaz.com.
Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful. Hey, I appreciate it so much. What have we missed? Anything you want to cover?
No, man. I feel like we hit some of the core pieces. I'm hoping everyone listening today feels a little bit more of a sense of permission to do some of the conversations, a little more willing to practice some of the words and phrases, and a little bit more aware of looking at their own stuff and their own discomfort and trying to work through that to be able to say, you know what, I got to talk to my kids. And I also probably have to translate some of it back to my own bedroom.
There you go. Yeah. And, you know, I think as parents at times we put it off. Oh, we'll do it tomorrow. We'll do it next week. We'll do it next month. It's in front of them. It's in front of the kids.
That's right. That's right.
So, I mean, you need to get in front of it before technology does.
Well, and it's a whole nother subject and we won't dive into it today. And I can't believe actually as we're closing, I missed this, but from a safety perspective and preventing any sort of sexual abuse or child molestation from outside people, the best thing you can do is communicate and arm your children also and become a credible person they can come to and share. So from a safety perspective also, if that's not the best incentive to do this conversation, I don't know what is.
Yep. Yep. Everybody, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you follow Dr. Lisa Paz. And again, it's P-A-Z is how you spell her last name. Follow her on Instagram. Do you have a YouTube?
I don't.
You should. You should. It would be highly entertaining.
Thank you.
But I highly recommend you guys follow her. And the website's the same?
The website's the same, drlisapaz.com. Yep, drlisapaz.com.
Okay. Definitely look her up. And I appreciate so much you coming on. I really do. And I was looking forward to this conversation. So thank you so much. And I would love to have you back on. So
Thank you for having me, and
Thank
we
you for
will.
your
We'll do one on couples and parenting.
That sounds
stuff.
great. That sounds
All
great.
right.
Well, hey, thank you all for listening to Dad's podcast. You can find us on Spotify or Apple Podcast, as well as on YouTube and Instagram. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes. And we'll see you all next time. Thank you so much.